Picasso memoirs. I loved pictures before I loved Picasso, but at age 9, while visiting the Picasso in Man exhibition at the Musée des Beaux-Arts in Montreal, I fell in love with desire, lines on paper, by the hand of a man whom I knew to be living, somewhere in France, older, yes, but alive at the same time as me, on the same planet. It seemed incredible. I felt insistently many things. Who were these nude women? Trapped in a child's body, I was jealous of their breasts, their eyes, and hair between their legs, which seemed to demand Picasso's blackest hatchings or spills of ink. I could feel their flesh under the touch of his pen, feel his eyes' amusement at my curious glances. Arithmetic calculated that Picasso was now 82. If I left for France at 16, that would put him at 89. Then suddenly rage.
We're sitting in your magical garden, and it's reminding me of childhood and all the beautiful sounds of the cicadas and the birds and the scents of the cedar and the lilac, and the sun is just so gorgeous, and the breezes, and it's just filling me full of that mysticism of childhood. Do you want to talk a little bit about what were you like as a child?
Well, I was the youngest of 4.
Mm-hmm.
I was extremely shy and silent. Or that's the way I remember myself. Really didn't socialize, but I was happy. I just liked quiet time. And I loved Picasso. I mean, my parents had several hardcover art books, that had historical European works in them that I would look at, and I would mimic that kind of art, with the female figure with the long fancy dresses and things like that, portrait type artwork. Thinking that's what painting was all about, figurative artwork was all about. And then when I was, I think 9 or 10, there was the Picasso exhibition that came to the Montreal Museum of Fine Art. And I mean, my parents took me there frequently, so we went to that exhibition, and I thought, wait a minute, this artist is alive, and these are works that are being done now, so there are still great artists, famous artists that are living, and I thought, whoa. I really bonded with them, but also because, also in that day and age, many households had reproductions of artists like that and framed in their households, and we had, at the foot of our staircase in the main room, from the second floor to the main floor, a framed Picasso from the one he did with the acrobat family, the Sultanbons. And this was one of the details of just the little girl, and you see the back of her, and she's wearing the gymnastic ballet type dress, and she has her hand on a basket of flowers. And I would sit on the stairs and just look at her, and she was the one I wanted to be my friend. And I would just look at her and try and get her, because she looks like this, and I would be trying to get her to turn around. By, if you look at my history of art, you will see that there is many paintings where the figure, which is a self-portrait, but I'm dressed in that same dress because I'm identifying with her, and so I'm wearing that dress. I mean, you wouldn't. It doesn't look like me, but it represents me in the image. And then there's a point where I shed it, and I climb up on my easel, and I'm naked on the easel. I claimed it, like, I'm an artist now, you know, I'm my own artist. I'm no longer like a remnant of Picasso or whatever. I'm my own. Yeah.
I was no model longing for the artist's gaze. I was the artist, making all of these feelings now dangerous. Would Picasso ever take my drawing seriously? Could two great artists share the planet at the same time? Thank God he was old. Thank God I was safe in my little girl body.
How does the body, the female body, the aging body, the body in nature, how does it connect to your art?
My art? Well, in actual fact, over the years when I would be brush painting in the more traditional method, they were self-portraits in the sense that they were not physically looking like me, that they were reflecting things I was going through and expressing. So they're personal issues. I mean, I've been going through this, the other thing within me, seeking something that has been forever in my life. And I think it's hard to separate whether it's pursuing the art or whether it's pursuing the spiritual search. They're related. And so my artwork is always related to that seeking. And it reached a point where for some reason I felt like when I was painting this way with the brush and creating it, that it was too material. And I wanted something that was less material. And so that's why I started putting the paint on me and just imprinting, so that I wasn't dealing with creating the body. I was more referring to the soul seeking.
You've mentioned that your yearning for Picasso's girl in his two paintings from 1905, including the one with the dog, has been a thread throughout your creation of art. And what is it that draws you to this little girl in these two paintings that has never quite let you go?
Well, as I mentioned, it began as a little girl myself in the household, looking at her in the picture and wanting her to be my playmate. And I couldn't get her to turn around and exit and enter my world. So, wanting to be a painter, I entered the painting and became her, wearing her, I'll call it a costume. So it's got a black lace top and a somewhat frilly skirt in pink, my favorite color. And it's the kind of outfit that I would always say, if I was only to have one outfit, it would be that one. Years went by and I would do certain very personal episodes of my life in paintings. I would represent the figure in that dress.
What did she symbolize for you? And did it change?
She symbolized a little bit of solitude, isolation, but not in a negative way. Like, it's just a very quiet life that's trying to understand the depths of life, what life has to offer. And think her silence and her quiet manner is what appealed to me.
What about how she's posed, how she's standing, how she's turned away?
That was frustrating that I couldn't get her to turn her face around.
But that's the ineffable then. That almost represents what the muse is, because the muse will never fully turn towards you.
I had a dog when I was growing up. He was a mutt. He was about this size when I was that size myself. So I could picture, putting my hand on my dog's head, my dog Pogo.
Why do you think in some sense you've never relinquished her? She maintains her grasp upon you in some way. Is it because of the initial calling at an early age? Or is there some way that she's evoked the adult you in the different paintings at times of joy or grief?
Maybe as I became an adult and was dressing as her, it brought back the child within me, the child representing that sort of the purity of a child and the authenticity of their desire and their wisdom and their seeking. And I think it just, despite all the things that we deal with in our living lives as we go through different things, that at the very core of oneself, the essence does not change. And that's what she represents.
Look at me now. Like, this is what I do. Woo! She's crying. She's sad. Can I see whether I can wipe her nose? Gwendolyn. Oh no, it's actually the light reflecting on it.
The following day, my father read aloud the review in the Gazette over breakfast. The critic quoted a child's overheard comment, "I liked the bare ones best." They're called nudes, I said to myself, relieved at the distance between Montreal and Paris. When I was 22, I went to France. Picasso had died 3 years earlier, and I remember leaning on a stone wall overlooking Beauvenard, his villa, imagining him as I had seen him in photographs, seated in a large room, looking at a canvas, smoking, with sunlight angling through tall windows.
So you thought you would get your MFA, you might teach.
Yeah.
It didn't go in that direction. What changed and why, and who were your mentors in that era?
Yeah, it was a transitional stage in terms of my parenting because my children were getting older, and I thought, first of all, if I went and did a master's degree, a lot of it was just for an example to my children as they head off towards university age, that their mother was also pursuing her education. So I went into it in terms of not so much thinking about my painting, but as, my future as maybe earning some money. It wasn't an in-person course. You would work locally with a local artist who would be your, instructor. not instructor, but oversee the work you were doing through the semester. Like I had Harold Plunder for the first few semesters, and then at the end of each semester we would all meet in Vermont. People came from all over the place. I loved it because it wasn't the reason I didn't want to go to York University was they had a very specific thing they wanted you to follow, and I did not want to do that. And I would have loved to have gone back to Montreal, but I couldn't do that because I was still raising 3 children. So anyway, I was in Vermont in this course. And the first semester when I finished all my abstract works, the person overseeing me in the Vermont place, his comments were quite cruel, and how vacant these works were, and I came to agree with them. I thought, yeah, you're right. I was trying to see how far something could become abstract, totally with nothing of me involved, just creating an abstract painting. And I agreed. And so it made me realize I'm a figurative painter, and I want to be more of a, they contain a story. So when I began recognizing I wanted to be a figurative artist, I was interested in the abstract works of Doug Haynes because they're abstract. The series that he did based on El Greco's series on the disciples of Christ, and but they were abstract figurative works, and so that seemed very transitional, and they also had the spiritual side to them. So I went to Edmonton and I had a day interviewing him, and it was really so special for me to have that experience. And so the work in the next 2 semesters was all, I started doing portraits of my children who were in a transitional stage, and I was identifying with that. I was in a transitional stage. It's like going from adolescence to adulthood. Like, who am I? It's relearning after you've had a period of parenting, and all of a sudden you're older and in your mid-40s and wondering who you're going to be, what your new identity is. That led into me wanting to do a series on me, and I thought, well, I've always identified with the heroines in Henrik Ibsen plays. So I selected 4 of those, and I did 4 self-portraits, and again, they're all in their red robes to signify the connection between the abstract and the figurative and the spiritual. And then the fourth one, I've disrobed myself. And I'm climbing my easel. The canvas is behind me because I'm the painter, I'm not the subject anymore, I've taken the robe off, and
So, Picasso and his pink dress little girl, and El Greco and his red robed Christ. What is the connection between these garments?
Maybe this is where the spiritual side of me in that dress of Picasso's little girl. I think that's where it became evident to me that that's what I'm pursuing. When I encountered that little girl in her pink dress and couldn't get her to come out to me, and I had to enter to her, she got me to pass through the surface of the canvas into the world, into the art world, and so that's why I like wearing that dress, because it shows that's the world I live in, not the material world that we all think we live in.
visible in the garden, and I half wondered if she'd let me in if I dared explain the situation. She grew impatient with my lingering and waved at me to move on. I didn't know he was buried nearby. Can you bury Picasso? Lately, when I drink too much red wine, I start crying over the guy. He's not faring so well at the close of the century. Feminism is rewriting his history, and painting in general is ridiculed. When Françoise Gillot came to Harbourfront to read from her book Matisse and Picasso, I stood in line, not for her signature, although I got that too, but to look into the eyes that had looked into his as a woman, a lover, a painter. She was seated at a table, I was standing, which required her to raise her eyelids as she handed me back my copy of her book. She allowed me a glimpse before lowering them again, putting a closure on my dreams for Picasso.
Tell me something about your emphasis on the hands and the eyes. Why do you think that those are the kind of punctum or focal points of a lot of your pieces?
Well, because I think when a lot of people are doing figurative work, it's all about the material side of the figure, and the whole body being all significant. Whereas to me, no, it's like what's really happening is it's coming out from the interior, and it's exposed through the gestures and the energy in the eyes and the focus, and that's what you're relaying in the image, Not,
the energy.
Not the body is,
Look at me.
And again, it's coming from the soul of you, or the mind. Depends what it is, but yeah, this one is again the hands, right? The hands are significant, touching, but she's a seeker. They'll be upside down because you have to roll them up. Maybe these are not the ones with the pink rope. Nope. Those ones. Oh no, this one. This one I love. This one is Stafford.
Yes.
So there's the robe, pink robe that I have shed, the blank canvas where the artist works, not as the model, but as the artist, claiming the easel. And here, a crucifix. I like this because my eyes look a little bit anxious, you know. A series where the words were coming out, so it was Angel Hear Me. That's me going on a I've got my paintbrushes and my winter coat, but you can still see the dress underneath.
Yes.
The snowman in the distance, but I'm heading off.
On your donkey.
Yeah. Whole series.
All from that one pilgrimage.
Yeah, but I only did like 2, 4, 6, 8 paintings. I wanted to do a lot more. And this one was underneath the gauze, and I put the gauze on top so that I would have a nice soft landing when I put myself. And of course, it came through the gauze onto the yoga mat. And I thought, oh, cool! There's my new canvas, yoga mat. Several different layers. There's 3 layers here, I think. Yeah. It's just the idea of transition, but also being able to, being not so material, but getting more and more, whatever. But I also like using a mirror. Like, I haven't quite figured out how I'm going to do all this, and I have that on the mirror. I don't know whether you saw that. Printed on the mirror. So yeah, these are things this is the next direction that I'm taking in. To me, a sculpture was not a fixed thing that wasn't going to move. So I was thinking it would be fun, this was many years ago, to have an exhibition, but then have all these pieces and people could just enjoy sticking it on like that, you know? Don't you think that would be fun?
You feel like you're getting closer to the conclusion in your art practice.
Because my art practice was all about seeking this, and I seem to, in my own personal soul-seeking life, have reached it in the sense of finding my guru and the path that I want to follow. And so, I don't know whether if I was painting it would just be further, it would be just more the making of material things, or whether it would have any significance left to it. I don't know. this door is printed from the one that's over there. I just hung the fabric up on it and see, printed the door. And then printed me. Woo! Woo!